Hello, welcome to the tutorial on instance fields. In this tutorial, we're going to look at public fields. We'll see how those are properties of an object in the game. Actually, all fields are properties of objects, so we also have private fields. We also have fields that you can mark with a serialized field attribute, what that does. We're going to see how to modify fields from the inspector, and all of these we're going to use the float data type, which is a number that stores decimals. So let's jump in and see how we do this. So I'm going to start by opening up my movement script, and I'm going to just recognize some of the structure of this class right now. So it says public class movement colon mono behavior, and right after that there's this open curly bracket. Now if I put my mouse right by that curly bracket, my cursor right by that curly bracket, it actually highlights that one and the last curly bracket. So those two are a pair, and I can even click this little drop down and it'll close public class movement, right? So if I open that up, it says everything between here and here is what is this class. And these methods is void start and void update. These both as well have these matching curly brackets. And so if I close void start, well, it closes those curly brackets. So anything in there is start, anything in here is update. So I want to define some fields. I'm going to do that by pressing enter right after this curly bracket at the top. Press enter a bunch of times, and in this space inside the class, but not inside a method, this is where I define fields. So put 2 slashes, that's a comment. I'm going to say this is where we're going to define some fields. Now this is optional, this is just for our information. So I'm going to go public. Public means that everyone, the public, for example, can see this field. Now we need to put the data type. I'm going to put float, and let's put a name for this variable, this field. I'm going to call it speed. Okay, now notice movement.cs has a star beside it. That means it's not saved. If I go back to Unity, it doesn't have anything to reload, right? Movement still looks like this. Go back to Visual Studio and click Save on Movement Script. Then go back to Unity, and now it has to reload. So it's going to look like it froze for a moment as it's reloading. Now come back to Unity and scroll down, and your movement script now has this field called speed. So that's what adding public float speed did to this script. It added this speed field, and so I could change that number, and it would affect the speed if I programmed it that way. Now let's see what happens if I change public to private. Save that, and go back to Unity again. You'll see that the field actually just goes away. So the field is still there. It's still a property of this object, but I can no longer see it from the inspector, and no one can see it. Now, a happy in-between, often when you're writing a script, is when you're making a field, make it private, and also add the attribute serialized field in front of it. And so what that does is well, let's go back to Unity and see what it does. It allows us to modify the speed, that field, from the inspector, but it doesn't allow anyone else to modify it in this game. And we'll see how that's important later, but for now, this is what I want to encourage you to do when you make a field, is put serialized field and private, and then put your data type and put the variable name. So there's speed. So your challenge for this video is to add fields that represent the player's forward speed and horizontal speed, and then to set the values of those fields in the inspector. I'll let you pause the video and try that. All right, welcome back. Good job trying the challenge. So let's start by adding a field that represents the forward speed. Now this one could be forward speed. I might just leave that. I'll put a comment that says forward speed. You might also choose to rename this forward speed like that. This is a moment to talk about naming conventions, actually, so we'll do that right away. But let's take serialized field, and if you press tab, Visual Studio is pretty good at autofilling some of this some of these words here. I'm going to change this, not backward speed, that's a silly autocorrect. Let's rename this to horizontal speed. And let's talk about the naming convention here. So naming conventions for variables, this is a variable, is normally that we start with a lowercase letter, and every subsequent word starts with a capital letter. Okay, compare that to methods, where we have capital S start and capital U update. So methods start with a capital letter. We'll see more about methods later. And classes, for example, movement and mono behavior, those also start with capital letters. And then if it came down to having a constant, we would have that start with all caps. Or that whole word would be all caps, and there would be underscores between the words. So that's some of the naming conventions we'll use here. And Unity respects our names if we put them in the right naming conventions. So you'll see forward speed, lowercase f, capital S, actually in Unity gets formatted with a capital F and a space. So it kind of says, hey, good job for following the naming convention. Here's how it should appear to a human. So that's how we know that we've named it properly. To set these values in the inspector, we can either just click here and type them directly. So say forward speed is 5, horizontal speed is 10. Or if you click just to the left of this white blank spot, you can drag left and right, and that will, or maybe even up and down it looks like, and that will change the value of the speed as well, of these values. We're going to talk about these values when the game is playing versus when it's not playing. So we haven't yet played our game. Let's try clicking the play button, and we'll see how the game starts up. Okay, so the game is currently playing, nothing's happening. If I scroll down in the scene, or here, I click on the scene and scroll down in the inspector, right, make sure the player is selected. Here are the values for the player. Now it says 5 and 10 for speed. Let me change this to like 500 and 1000, just to be kind of crazy. And now I'm going to stop the game from playing by clicking the play button again. Notice these values went back to what they were before. So anytime you change a value in the inspector or in the scene while the game is playing, the change is not saved. Now if I change this right now while the game is not playing, now that change is going to be permanent. As permanent as it gets. I can always change it later. But change 500 back to 5 while it's playing and stop it, and it goes back to 500. Now change it back to 5 while it's not playing, and it's going to stay at 5. So that's the last note to make about these values changing the inspector. Okay, that's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.